Chapter 13, Pledges of Allegiance. When we pull up at Pledges, I marvel over what a fantastic job the rehab has done of making it look casual and rustic. This place, with its threadbare living room, smoking patio littered with overflowing ashtrays, sad-looking therapy room, and broken basketball net, looks more like the camp I went to in Yosemite than a rehab to the stars. And I decide I like the fact that they make an effort to downplay all the luxury. I'd hate it if it was ostentatious like a cruise ship, and I might feel intimidated if there were a bunch of movie stars with perfect bodies lounging by a pool. A smiling 40-something guy bounces into the entry room and introduces himself as Tommy, telling me that he's going to be my counselor. I wonder how such assignments are made. Does an efficient receptionist examine my facts and go, magazine journalist, coke problem, serious smoker, this one's for Tommy. But something about Tommy makes me feel immediately safe, so I decide to like him even though I already resent his cheerfulness. "Have you been in before?" he asks me as I pick at a cuticle that is already bloodied from the abuse I've been giving it since checking out of the hospital. "In?" Looking around, I ask, "In this room, you mean?" Tommy bursts into a huge laugh. "I love newcomers," he says. A guy wearing a t-shirt that reads, "Need your plumbing fixed?" walks into the room with a nervous-seeming, balding man who would look right at home sitting at a bus stop clutching a drink. "Hoel, Stan, come meet Amelia," Tommy bellows. He pronounces what seems like the name Joel with an H, so it sounds like Hoel. Hoel shuffles over while staring at the ground, and Stan fixes me with a lascivious leer. Even though I'm fairly horrified by my soon-to-be rehab mates, I know I'm going to have to make friends around here, so I smile and reach my hand out to Stan to shake. Hoel is staring at the ground with his arms by his side, so I leave him alone. "Welcome," Stan says, ignoring my hand and throwing his fleshy, sweaty arms around me, pulling me into him so that his BO is permanently embedded in my nostrils. I'm positive that Tommy is going to yank me away from this disgusting man and tell him to stop sexually harassing the women around here. But when I look at Tommy's face from under Stan's armpit, he's smiling as if Stan and I are the cutest couple he's ever seen. As I extricate myself from Stan's grasp, Tommy smiles at me. "Oh, Amelia," he says, "soon enough you're going to learn how to accept love." I give Tommy the evil eye, but he's obviously going blind or something because he continues to look at me with his huge grin. Mom is glancing around the place like she thinks someone might run up and snatch her purse, something that at this point actually seems like a somewhat reasonable fear. "So, Tommy," she says in a super uncomfortable-sounding voice, "we have to be getting to the airport soon so we don't miss our flight." Yes, Tommy says, looking from me to my mom. "She's in safe hands, don't you worry." He glances at his watch. "Group starts in about 5 minutes, so if you all want to say goodbye, I can take Amelia over there and she can unpack later." Dad hugs me and Mom gets tears in her eyes, but I can't deal with their emotions right now because I have too many questions. Like, group what? Can group be a noun? Doesn't it describe a noun? I want to lecture Tommy about how he left off the second part of his explanation and how he should be more accurate when he's describing something that sounds absolutely terrifying. But I stay silent. "Bye, Amelia," Mom says. "Please be good." I hug her and realize she's shaking. It dawns on me how disappointing it must be to have carried someone in your womb for 9 months and put up with a whole slew of fights and hassles, only to drop her off at a torn-down-looking rehab with guys like Hoel and Stan as playmates. For a split second, I think I'm going to collapse in shame-filled sobs. But I step away from her and stand up straight. "I will be good, Mom," I say. "I promise." Dad starts to lead her toward the front door. Then they turn back to wave, and I feel myself tearing up. Supposedly, on my first day of kindergarten, when my mom tried to drop me off, I simply wouldn't let go of her hand. The teacher, Sue, eventually had to pry my hand away from Mom's, and I cried inconsolably. Supposedly, I was fine by later that day, but transitional moments have never been easy for me. I wave at their retreating backs, and just as Mom turns around to blow me a kiss, Stan throws one of his bulking hands on my right shoulder. "Don't you worry, Mr. and Mrs. Amelia," he calls. "I'll keep her good." Group seems to be short for group therapy, and this kind of group therapy involves each of us stating our first name followed by the word alcoholic, just like in that ridiculously dull Faye Dunaway movie that always seems to be on the independent film channel. Then Tommy calls on people to share, and sharing seems to mean talking about how much we miss using. Using seems to refer to anything, drinking, shooting heroin, taking pain pills, whatever. I'm figuring all this stuff out and feeling like I really may need to talk to the head of pledges about this bizarre habit they seem to have of leaving off the second part of words. It should be using alcohol or using drugs, not just the word using without having it refer to anything I can picture myself explaining. The problem is I'm feeling somewhat frozen into muteness. When I was younger, I was considered shy. I don't remember feeling shy just as much as I remember being described as shy and how much I hated it. I wanted to be gregarious and confident and outgoing, even before I knew what those words meant. And when our family went on a cruise to Alaska when I was 10, and I befriended a Southern girl named Amy, who everyone called effervescent, I decided that was the personality I wanted to adopt. According to Mom, I changed overnight, and she suddenly had a loud extrovert for a daughter instead of the diffident girl who clutched her mother's hand in quaking fear. Occasionally, shy Amelia creeps back up, especially when I'm around new people. Shy Amelia is one of the reasons I like drinking and drugs so much. They made me able to access my effervescent side at all times. Just as I'm thinking about this and about how horribly traumatized I'm going to be if they make me share in this group, Tommy turns to me. "Guys, this is Amelia," he says. And suddenly, horrifyingly, they're all looking at me like I'm cocaine and they've been waiting for the dealer for hours. In addition to Stan and Hoel, there are a couple of other older men in brown sweaters, an overly tan blonde girl, an extremely gay black guy, and exactly one super hot guy with brown hair, blue eyes, and Abercrombie-type clothes. For his sake, I flash what I hope is a winning smile. "Want to introduce yourself to the group, Amelia?" Tommy asks, even though that's just what he did. "Oh, sure," I say, pretending that my heart isn't racing. "I'm 30 years old and work, or at least until recently worked at Absolutely Fabulous magazine." The gay-looking guy titters, but I ignore him as I gaze straight at Tommy. What else should I say? "Amelia, this is probably the one place in LA where we don't care about how old you are and what you do," Tommy says. The gay guy and Blondie laugh. "Just tell us about your disease." I'm humiliated for having answered incorrectly and immediately indignant. Clearly these people, Hoel and Gay Titterer and Blondie and even Hot Guy in the corner, weren't holding down jobs, or if they were, they obviously weren't very demanding or glamorous. Although I haven't had a job since I stopped showing up at Holly's, these people looked like they hadn't been employed like ever. Where the hell were the celebrities and high-level producers? That was the group I needed to be in. "Amelia?" Tommy says, and I realize everyone's still looking at me. "Your disease?" "Oh yeah, my disease." When I read through the big blue book Dr. Randy Rand had given me at the hospital, I noticed that they made a big thing about how alcoholism was as real a disease as cancer or Parkinson's, but was centered in the mind. "See, that's the thing," I say, glancing around to catch different people's eyes as a painfully obvious sympathy ploy. I really have or had a problem with cocaine. I mean, I really love Coke. When I have it, I can't seem to stop using it until it's all gone. I pause, waiting for someone to congratulate me on my quick ability to use one of their ridiculous vocab words in a sentence, not to mention my obvious awareness of and honesty about my drug problem. Nobody says a word. I continue. "When it comes to alcohol, though, I can take it or leave it. It usually just gives me a headache or makes me feel achy. I definitely don't have a problem with it." I give Tommy a decidedly unalcoholic smile. "So you don't drink at all?" Tommy asks, with what I can swear is a look of bemusement. "Well, I drink," I say, "but just the regular amount, or to come down a little if I'm too wired from Coke. But I definitely don't have a drinking problem. I don't even like alcohol." The blonde girl nods at me like she understands. Maybe she's in my situation, a person with a drug problem stuck in this room of people obsessed with calling themselves alcoholics. "If that's the case," Tommy says, "I suggest you take some time, say a year or two, off of drinking and see if you miss it." My mouth threatens to fall open, but I try to appear blasé as I assess whether or not Tommy is joking. "A year or two?" I ask with a slight smile. "Sure," he says, folding his arms. "If you can take a couple of years off of drinking and not miss it, then I would say you're probably not an alcoholic." He smiles at me, and for the first time it occurs to me that Tommy may be an asshole dressed up like a nice guy. But I don't want to give these people any more ammunition against me than they already have. "Actually," I say with a smile, "I was planning to stop with the Coke, stop with drugs of all kinds, no problem, and cut down significantly on my drinking." In fact, a guy at a party told me about a drinking cessation program. Do you know about it? The entire room burst into laughter, and I feel myself blushing, while also trying to pretend like I know what's funny. The guy had told me that it was a program you went to when you weren't an alcoholic, but everyone thought you were. I'd figured the people at Pledges would know how I could join it. When everyone continues to laugh, Blondie, who I thought was on my side included, I start to get pissed. What's so funny? I find myself snapping, alarming myself with the snideness of my tone. Everyone stops laughing, and Tommy glances at the hot guy in the corner. Justin, you want to tell Amelia what's so funny? The hot guy, Justin, smiles and looks even cuter than he did when he was laughing. He catches my eye from across the room. Amelia, he says, and I have an involuntary shudder at such a hot guy saying my name and looking me in the eye, even under these depressing circumstances. That program doesn't exist anymore. Tommy looks at Justin and asks, and why is that? The woman who started it got wasted and killed a kid in her car a few months ago, Justin says. The program has since been disbanded. And that's funny, I say, hoping to shame everyone in the room. No, it's not, Justin says. What's funny is that when I got here, I asked the same question. So did I, Blondie pipes up. Good for you, I say, not sure why they think any of this would be amusing or interesting to me. But my point is that while I've acted addictively with drugs, I'm not an alcoholic. Everyone is silent, and I wonder if they finally come around to understanding this extremely simple point I'm trying to make. Would you be willing to at least consider the fact that alcoholics and drug addicts are the same thing, Tommy asks. He's looking at me so kindly that I almost want to acquiesce, even though I know he's wrong. But they're not the same thing, I explain. I realize you feel that way, he says. And that's why I'm asking if you'd be willing to just consider the fact that they might be. I look around at all of them, noticing several people I hadn't even seen before, all of whom seem to have an inordinate number of tattoos. Was one of the prerequisites for Pledges a certain amount of permanent ink on various body appendages? Despite their general seediness and ridiculous optimism in the light of where they were currently seated, at this particular moment, I find it almost impossible to continue to hate all of them. And besides, I think Tommy isn't asking for so much. Fine, I say. I'm willing to consider that. The group bursts into applause, like I've just performed a vignette, and I stifle the urge to tell them to stop clapping and get a life. Tommy stands up and walks over to me, leaning down to give me a hug. Welcome to Pledges, Amelia, he says, pulling me close to him. And for reasons thoroughly unclear to me, I burst into tears. Everyone in the room breaks into another round of applause. Later that afternoon, I'm crying again, and I can't seem to stop. I'm in my room looking around at my shabby surroundings, sobbing when the gay guy Peter pokes his head in. You okay? He says. I want to tell him that's a dumb thing to say to someone who's crying, but just shake my head and keep crying. He makes a sympathetic face. Why are you crying? He asks, and I look up at him incredulously. Why am I crying? I ask. My question is, why aren't you? We're in rehab. Peter blinks and smiles like he's never experienced a sad emotion in his life. He's probably thrilled to be here because he gets to room with other men, I think. I feel thoroughly positive that Peter hasn't experienced a fraction of the pain that I have and resent his put-together outfit and confused-looking head tilt more than I can even express. Please, I say to him, just leave me alone. After he leaves, I listen to the people out on the smoking patio. I'd hung out with them after group and tried to feel comfortable while a girl talked about robbing people at ATMs to get money for heroin, and a guy regaled the group with stories of popping benzos and other things I'd never heard of. When Justin laughed with a completely freaky-looking guy with about 50 pierces in his ear, I concluded that I couldn't even fit into a group that clearly accepts anyone. I kept trying to read the Blue Book, which is all about these old guys finding God and following steps that involve always looking for your part in whatever resentment you have. It's a remarkably boring book, and I can't for the life of me figure out how it has anything to do with cocaine. Eavesdropping on the people outside is way more interesting. As they light cigarettes and crack jokes and sound like they're in complete denial about their general life situation, I want to scream, "You're not coworkers on an office break or college students blowing off steam. You're in rehab. It doesn't get any lower than this. What is wrong with you that you're not more depressed by your circumstances?" I don't want to start crying again because I've been told that my roommate is going to be checking in soon. I'm counting on her being some kind of a saving grace, so I just keep listening to them while trying to read the damn book. I've already decided that my roommate will be cute and normal, and will smoke and eat candy and plan extravagantly creative goodbye parties for each other like people always do in movies about rehab. I'm wavering between these my roommate will save me fantasies and thinking that checking in here was a horrific mistake as I listen to everyone laugh. I'm thinking about how I'm nothing like these annoyingly cheerful freaks when Kimberly, the no-nonsense front desk lady, walks into my dank, depressing room. "Knock, knock," she says, even though she's already inside. In rehab, this probably counts as a joke. "I'm here to go through your bags." Stan had warned me about this. He told me that Kimberly would come and search my belongings for smuggled-in coke and pills. How desperate did people have to be, I wonder, to sneak drugs into rehab? Kimberly grabs my pink hobo purse from the floor and pulls my BlackBerry out. "You won't be needing this," she smiles as she tucks the BlackBerry into her pocket. Even though I vaguely recall someone telling me this would happen, I can't help but feel horribly violated, and I'm positive that Kimberly is getting some sadistic pleasure out of taking away my connection to the outside world. She continues to go through my bag until she lands on a bottle of Listerine. "Oh, no way, Jose," she says while cradling it, sounding excited. "You encourage bad breath?" I snap. "Oh, that's funny," she says, not sounding remotely amused. "There's alcohol in there." And then I snap. "Jesus Christ, I'm not going to drink Listerine for the alcohol," I say. Kimberly clearly doesn't feel it's necessary to respond. She simply slides the bottle of mouthwash into her other pocket and looks at me the way one might a serial killer. "You ready for your UA?" she asks. I stare at her, not interested in explaining that I have no idea what she's asking me. "Your test?" she says. I continue to stare at her blankly. "Urine analysis," she finally says, then adds, "You have to pee in a cup." She turns and starts walking out of the room, and I get up and follow her. It probably should have occurred to me, but of course I hadn't even considered the fact that they were going to be constantly testing me to see if I was taking drugs. While in one way I can't imagine who the hell would take drugs while in rehab, after getting a look at Stan and some of the other residents, I'm beginning to gather an answer. I follow Kimberly to the front office, where she picks a clear plastic cup from inside her desk and hands it to me. At this point, I know what to do. I have been to the gyno after all. "Okay, be right back," I say and start toward the bathroom. "Ha ha," Kimberly says, immediately on my tail. As if. And that's when I realize this bitch is planning to come into the bathroom with me. Jesus. What the hell does she think, that I'm high but storing some good pee in my side pocket that I plan to put in a cup if she doesn't log my every move? We go into the bathroom, and as I pull down my pants, I think that it's a good thing I don't have issues about being naked in front of people, or I'd really be in trouble. I'm about to sit down on the toilet seat when I realize that thousands of skanky, drug-addicted asses have surely been here before me. Based on what I've observed about the hygiene situation here, I bet the remnants of those experiences still remain. In public toilets, I never have the patience to bother with those toilet covers. I simply squat an inch or so above. But am I going to be able to squat and pee in a cup with a humorless, suspicious wench watching me? I tell myself to ignore her, then just squat and hold the cup under my stream, grateful that I'm not having performance anxiety. I fill the cup, place it on the counter, finish peeing, wipe, and start washing my hands. Kimberly stands there gazing at my cup of pee. "It's all yours," I say, gesturing toward the cup. She walks over, picks it up, and looks at it with wonder. "Amelia," she says, "you really ought to think about drinking more water." "Why?" I ask as I think about how much I want to smack her. "Healthy pee," she says, "should be almost clear." We both look at mine, which is orange. "Great," I say, "thanks for the tip. Can I go now?" She nods and sachets out of the room. As I follow her out, I wonder if she's going to write down the color of my pee in my file. I pass the payphone and yearn to call someone. But Rich, an 18-year-old kid from Boulder, Colorado, has been dominating the phone since I got here. Obviously, asking 20 adults to share one payphone is ridiculously inhumane, but so is silently accusing a non-alcoholic of packing contraband mouthwash for a secret buzz, or acting like she'll probably cheat on a freaking pee test. Even if Rich, the Colorado kid, does ever get off the phone, I know that I don't feel like talking to Mom or, in fact, to anyone. I have no credibility anymore, so my explaining that everyone in rehab is psychotic wouldn't convince anyone to come save me. It occurs to me for not the first time that I really don't have any friends. And for once, this thought doesn't make me cry. Maybe I'm just all out of tears at this point. I'm sitting in the breakfast room the next morning, thoroughly exhausted. when Tommy greets me with a huge smile and says that sometime today I have to go see Dr. Thistle, the resident doctor at Pledges. "How did you sleep?" Tommy asks brightly. I debate whether or not I should tell him that sleep is a pretty optimistic description of what I'd been doing. The girl who was supposed to have been my roommate clearly came to her senses and decided to forego rehab, so last night I was alone in my creepy room. I spent most of the time staring at the ceiling, occasionally getting up to smoke and to try to read the blue book. Though mind-numbingly boring, the book somehow never put me to sleep. "Fine," I say. Here at breakfast, everyone's chattering, but I can't think of anything to say until my third cup of coffee when I ask the tan blonde Robin what she does for a living. She tells me that she's been a Hawaiian tropic model, once stripped down to her G-string on Howard Stern, and continues to go on sharing anecdotes about her life. I get the distinct sensation that she considers rehab another stop on her party tour, like summer in the Hamptons, winter in Aspen, spring in rehab, and I envy her relaxed attitude. Maybe I'm the crazy one for thinking rehab is such a horrible place to be. When we're done eating, Robin walks me over to Dr. Thistle's office and tells me that she'll see me later in group. It's beginning to dawn on me that group happens constantly, like every moment we're not eating or sleeping or cleaning our dishes. So far, no one's mentioned a word about the pool or horse therapy or massages. I sit down with Dr. Thistle, or Doc as everyone around Pledges calls him, and tell him about all the coke I've done. I only add as an afterthought that I was also taking up to 10 Ambien a night. "Up to 10 pills a night?" he asks, dumbfounded. 6.25 milligrams each? I shrug. I had never actually checked the milligrams. Still, from what I gleaned about my rehab mates, Dr. Thistle regularly listened to people talk about shooting drugs into their nipples and doing lines off of strangers' asses. So him being so judgmental about me taking a few sleeping pills seemed pretty ridiculous. Look, I wasn't taking them for fun, I say. I was taking them because I suffer from insomnia. "I understand," he says, "and when did you stop taking them?" "The other day," I say. "When I got out of the hospital, I decided to go cold turkey." Doc shakes his head. "That wasn't smart. You should have told them how many you were taking when you were in the hospital so they could have detoxed you off of them with an IV. You could have had a seizure." I don't think anything sets me off more than being told I've done something stupid, so I stifle an urge to tell him to fuck off. Instead, I say, "Well, clearly I did not have a seizure, doctor, so I guess we can conclude that I survived despite my stupidity." "It's going to be a while before you'll be able to sleep through the night," he says. This guy needs to be given a serious lecture about glass half full versus glass half empty logic, but I'm too desperate to get away from him to be the one to do it.